Hi everybody. This video is to walk you guys through your first essay assignment, and I know we're moving very quickly in this first week by having an essay assignment, but it is a very short one. So you guys in this week read a number of different texts from authors who are relative to kind of the early founding of America, what we now know as America. And what you're going to do is you're going to choose one of the works that you read in this unit from that author, and you're going to develop a written analysis of that work from that author. So I say you can choose more than one if you like. I mean that mostly for Bradstreet, if you want to do a couple of her poems. However, this is an extremely short essay, so my suggestion to you is to just focus on one work so you can dive really deep into that work. So that my feedback to you isn't that, the argument is underdeveloped. So you're going to incorporate contextual elements relative to their life, the cultural history, or the larger historical impact in your analysis. But it's very, very important that you keep the focus on analyzing the text as a piece of literature. So do not let this become a biography essay. Do not let this become a history essay. Think of how I'm breaking down the piece of literature in the lectures. That's the kind of literary analysis you should be doing in your analysis. So you're looking at the structure, you're looking at metaphors, symbols, similes, personification, whatever it might be, syntax. That's the kind of focus that you should have. And then secondarily, you can think about how the historical context or the biographical context is important to that work. So think about, in that case, the political, social, economic, or philosophical changes that were taking place as this new quote-unquote American identity is being formed. So for example, if you look at Columbus, your primary analysis should be over the letters themselves. So what is the repeated use of I, for example? How does that syntax show the audience something specific? Or the imagery that is used in De Vaca, or in Bradstreet, her rhyme scheme, or whatever it might be. And then secondarily, think about how Columbus's own, experiences as an explorer being funded by Ferdinand and Isabella, how that informed the text. So he's clearly writing back to Ferdinand and Isabella, trying to get something, right? So why is he describing things with certain images? Or why does he use certain language about the native people? Things like that. So as you start to kind of think about this, think about why the text matters in terms of the larger perspective. So why does it matter that we read Columbus's letters and how he talks about the native people, or how he talks about, I don't know, himself? Same thing with De Vaca. How does he talk about the Christian, entity? How does he talk about the natives? And then for Bradstreet, why is it important that we understand the familial and social structures, especially from a very unique perspective for this time period, for her as an author, as the first female transatlantic author? Why is that important that we understand that when we look at how this new identity was being formed across our sort of nation? So some things you can think about how the author and the work influence or impact these changes that are happening, the social, political, economic changes. Think about how they fit or perhaps don't fit with that new quote-unquote American identity. How does the author help shape these ideals? And then how do they approach the subject matter? So what are they trying to achieve? What's the goal or the message of their text that they're trying to get across to the audience? So make sure that you have a clear introduction with a thesis claim and main ideas. Each of your main ideas should have solid evidence from the text to help support. So for example, if you are talking about the importance of how De Vaca describes with say the imagery of the native people, and why that's important, he makes sure that they seem as if they are human. They're fully fleshed out human beings. They're not. It's certainly not the same way that Columbus describes them. So why does that matter? What is his message? And then if you pull in specific evidence, so you're going to tell me that he describes them as, as people with cultural history and there's a familial bond between mothers and children. Give me the quote that shows that. That helps prove your point to your audience. So again, use specific words, phrases, or passages as evidence to support your analysis. And then expand on that quote after you put it in by explaining to your audience how that shows support for your own claims. And then of course at the end you'll want to have a conclusion, which basically wraps up your argument and restates your thesis and your main ideas in new words. So if I could give you guys any advice, it's to think carefully about how you're going to structure your essay. Make sure you have clear main ideas relative to ideally specific literary elements that you want to be discussing. So whether that's the personification, the dialogue, the imagery, whatever it might be, conflict. Make sure that you carefully and clearly structure your argument. So your essay needs to be at least 1.5 pages in length. If it's less than that, I will take off points. And it's due by Sunday, July 10th at 11:59 p.m. Make sure you meet the minimum page length. Make sure you have MLA formatting. That means you have your header in the top left, which is your name, the instructor's name, the date, and the course and section number. Your page numbers in the top right, a title, double-spaced, 1-inch margins all around, Times New Roman, Arial, Cambria, or Calibri font. And then make sure remember that everything will be checked for plagiarism. You guys can see the plagiarism report when you turn this in. If you turn it in and you don't see it render on screen, you can resubmit as many times as you need up until the deadline. Remember, this must be submitted as a Word doc. So don't turn it in as a PDF or a text file or something like that. So you're going to be assessed in making sure you have good analysis of the work itself and its major concepts as a piece of literature, primarily, and then secondarily, how you kind of discuss the identity or the historical context. Again, keep the focus on the text. Make sure this is a literary analysis essay above all else. Do not let it become a biography essay. Do not let it become a history essay. Good evidence from the text to support your claims, proper length formatting and citations, fully developed essay structure, including a good intro, clear main ideas, and a conclusion, and then careful and clear organization of all ideas. So I've given you guys a couple of suggestions here, just things you can think about. There is no way that you need to write about all of this in 1.5 pages. These are just things you may want to think about when you're considering which literary elements you'd like to discuss for the work that you're going to be analyzing. So if you're talking about characterization, use terminology like archetypes, protagonist, antagonist, major, secondary, development, right? Flat, static, round, dynamic. If you're looking at literary devices like similes, metaphors, irony, foreshadowing, structure, you can look at the dramatic arc, so the rising action, the denouement, the falling action. You can look at the conflict, so that's man versus society, man versus self. Look at the point of view, right? Is it an unreliable narrator? Is it a first-person point of view? Is it third-person omniscient? Why does that matter? And then look at the literary concepts like themes, symbol, motifs, style, allusion. And then lastly, like I said, secondarily, look at the historical context. So look at the biographical elements of the author. Look at the events that were kind of surrounding the text. Look at the social, ethical, or moral issues that are being discussed, so on and so forth. So if you have any questions, be sure to reach out, but this is not a long essay, so it shouldn't be too difficult. And let me know if you guys have any questions as you work.